So I'm sick. I have slept for 1,000 hours. I've taken every piece of medicine known to man. And although I might be sick, I'm more sick of what I'm about to talk about than like how I actually feel. Because what I saw was like actually sick. And I don't know how long I'm going to be feeling like this. So I'm going to power through because this is actually horrible. This might be among one of the worst things that I've talked about, among one of the more disgusting things that I have covered. Damn it.
So fucking close.
I saw this video. Basically, these two kids, a 16-year-old and at the time a 17, now an 18-year-old, filmed themselves driving around in Las Vegas like it was GTA. They drove around and they like bumped into another car on purpose. And then they saw this dude, 64-year-old man, riding his bike. They hit him on purpose and killed him, and I guess had the bright idea to post it. That's the craziest part. That's among the crazier parts about things like this. Is I've seen a lot of heinous stuff, and most of it I've seen on the internet. Like, the internet is a plague in some regards, because after doing this, how on earth do you think... I mean, you've already done something horrible by hitting a person on purpose and then killing them, whether you knew you did that at the time or not. But then to, like, put it on the internet, because I feel like that's the only way that it's out there. Has to be, right? Is that you film it and then you post it. I don't understand the rationale behind people doing some really messed up stuff, looking at the footage, like reviewing it, maybe edit it a little bit, and then put it out, right? I just don't get it. But that's exactly what happened. But here it is, at least what I can show of it, right? It's these two kids moving around, basically with no regard for anybody else's life at all.
All right, go. Go. Keep me moving. Bitch ass nigga! Stop talking shit, bitch! Stop talking shit! Nigga! Fuck wrong with blood? Ready? Yeah. Hit his ass.
So according to their commentary, they knocked him out. No, they killed him. This is a 64-year-old man. He's riding a bike, and they hit him with their car, and they kill him. Now, as unfortunate as this is, if you've kind of caught on to the theme of like what it is that I usually talk about when I get on here, you kind of know where I'm going with this, right? Look at the face of the man who they killed. Just look at him, right? This man is a white man. Now, it shouldn't matter, but it does, unfortunately, and I'll tell you why in a second. Now, look at the two dudes who killed him. One of them is black. The other one looks Mexican. So, based on what I've observed over the past few years or whatnot, when something like this happens, people get angry. They get upset. They might protest. Unfortunately, sometimes they might riot. They put pressure on elected officials to do something about crime, etc. So when things like this happen, I'm waiting. I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, when is it going to happen? And I'm not advocating for rioting, but I understand anger when situations happen. But what I've noticed is that it seems to be one-sided. It seems to only ensue when there are certain factors at play, right? If it's the opposite or the reverse or something different, well then no one has time for it, which is the weirdest thing to me ever. It is so crazy to me, right? Because it doesn't even need to be said that because of the races involved, that almost everyone is radio silent on this. The amount of outrage that I have heard is so minuscule, you don't even know that it exists. You don't. I didn't see the details of this incident from some major news outlet. It wasn't shoved in my face, right? If I wasn't on my phone on day X, I wouldn't have seen it. It's as simple as that. I wouldn't have seen it. And it's so frustrating because what it does is it verifies that we constantly subject ourselves to our race. That's it. That's like the determining factor of what makes us a human being is the color of our skin, and that will dictate like the amount of outrage that a certain situation gets or the amount of attention a certain incident will yield based on the race of the people who are involved. So the fact that there's no outrage for this on any level is extremely disheartening and very, very frustrating, right? Because it happens whenever it is a black person on the unfortunate end of a situation, as it should. Now, once again, to a certain degree, I'm not for rioting and destruction of property or whatnot, but demonstrating outrage and frustration and anger when a person dies at the hands of another person, that is extremely warranted. And it happens almost all the time whenever it is a black person. And someone records it and it makes headlines and people are just pissed, right? They're not happy. And they want something to change. They want something to be different, whatever it is, right? And I'm down with that. So why isn't that reciprocated for other people who live in this world that are not black? And this isn't a teams thing, right? Where something unfavorable happens to a black person, so now only black people have to express their frustration. Or something unfavorable happens to a white person, so only white people have to express their frustration. That's insane. Because once again, we're just subjecting ourselves to race and not acknowledging that we are people, right? Like, it doesn't matter what the skin color is. We are people, but that's the reality here. If this man was a black man, then this would be a different story. Imagine two white dudes running down a black dude who's riding a bike. Right? The entire world would catch on fire. But you got two minorities who run down a white man, radio silent. It's the weirdest thing ever. And it doesn't even stop there, right? And this is why I come on this freaking thing and talk about my frustration with this weird obsession of coddling minorities, especially black people, just making it like we have no way possible of being able to make it in this world or in this country on merit. Therefore, we need special treatment because so much has happened to us, right? That we can't handle anything else. Therefore, we need everyone to walk on eggshells around us, tiptoe around us, can't say the wrong thing. You got to give us all the special treatment, X, Y, and Z. Because that type of conduct finds its way in every single aspect of human life. When you operate like that, it finds its way in everything. Exhibit A. Look at this headline from an article I saw describing what happened. Retired police chief killed in bike crash, remembered for laugh, love of coffee. And this ain't the only one I saw like it, right? Saw other ones. Police chief hit by car, run down by car, the car, right? I feel like I got to go on a scavenger hunt to find an article that tells what actually happened. Right? Is that these two dudes, regardless of if you want to name their race or whatnot, I mean, like I said, it shouldn't matter, but just acknowledging that they played a role in this at all is important, right? That these two dudes ran down this man and killed him, right? That's what happened, right? No, a car didn't just wake up one day and decide to just run this man down. No, that's not the case. But this is a pattern that I have seen since I just became aware of the world and all these issues regarding race. I'm not sure if you remember this. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But there was a incident a couple of years ago that took place in which a black man used an SUV to basically drive in the midst of a parade around Christmas time and just ran a bunch of people over. Killed a handful of people. I think one of them included a child, which is extremely disheartening. And instead of making that the focal point, right? The fact that this dude killed these people. No, once the news and the media found out his race, they went to work. And headlines matter, and I'll show you why in a second. But just look at all these headlines, right? Once again, you have to go on a scavenger hunt to find a headline with some common sense that actually tells you what happened. Waukesha Christmas parade attack. News on Wisconsin tragedy. Christmas parade attack. All right. Where's the information at in the headline? Nowhere to be found because they figured out that the dude was black. 5 dead, more than 40 injured after SUV plows through U.S. Christmas parade. So when I read that, I'm thinking the SUV woke up that morning, grew a brain, a nervous system, a conscience, developed reasoning, and then just decided to be a killer SUV and drove through the crowd itself. Because not once in that headline did it mention the guy who operated the vehicle and then killed those people. No, they didn't do that because he's black. SUV drives into crowd of people at Waukesha Christmas parade. Once again, didn't know that SUVs were alive and could operate themselves. I thought people did that, but I guess not when they're black. Now, let's go back to the headline in this situation, right? Look at the man who was unfortunately killed, unfortunately had his life taken. And then look at the headline above it. Retired police chief killed in bike crash, remembered for love of coffee. Now, and it could be it depends on what time the article was created or whatnot. No, I looked at that one. I looked at all these other ones in regard to the Waukesha parade. I looked and I read the article. The stuff is in the article, right? But headlines matter. That's the thing that grab you in. That's the thing that you want to present to the world, right? So you're not necessarily lying by what you say. You're just kind of doing it by omission because you're not telling the full story. And then any part of the full story is in the very small print at the bottom of the article, right? So you got to go through all the BS and all the beating around the bush because you don't want to put out to the world that, a minority is capable of doing something as heinous as running a man over on a bike or taking an SUV and plowing through a crowd of people. No, you don't want to do that. Why? Because we've been through so much and we need all the special treatment we can get. But that's not even where it ends, right? If you remember the situation with Jordan Neely earlier this year, 2023, black man on a subway gets choked out. It's unfortunate. I've said it a million times before, and I'll say it again any single time that a situation like that happens where someone dies at the hands of another person, regardless of if it was justified or unjustified. It hurts my heart because these are people, not numbers or just statistics. But the reality is that it happened. Is that Daniel Penny, a white man, choked out Jordan Neely, a black man, on a subway. But just look at the headlines. The overwhelming amount of headlines I saw followed the same trend. Daniel Penny, everything we know about ex-Marine film choking Jordan Neely in fatal subway accident. Daniel Penny killed Jordan Neely on subway video. Charges filed, what we know. So you see in the headline, they have no problem with expressing what they believed happened because it fits whatever narrative that they want to put out there. It makes the white man look like the oppressor. It makes the black man look like the helpless victim. And you can put that in a headline and you can sell, right? That's the goal. It doesn't work in the reverse, right? If you make the black and the Mexican and the other minorities look like the oppressors or the aggressors and the white people look like the victims, that doesn't sell because that doesn't register to people because that's not what we were taught. We were taught, especially in this country, that it's exclusively a power dynamic in which white people are the oppressors and they are here to make every minority, especially black people's lives, a living hell. So anything unfavorable that happens to a white person, we can just write it off as, well, the car grew a brain and decided to go commit that crime, right? Or the gun decided to grow legs and arms and decided to pull the trigger itself. Or there's some other justification as to why we're not expressing what actually happened in the headline and in the articles and in the news reports like we would if it was a white person who was the aggressor or committing the crime or doing something in self-defense and an unfavorable conclusion occurs. And that's my frustration, man, is people don't want to acknowledge it, but it's the reality. Like, both situations should be on a level playing field. If a black person is killed, especially in a situation like this, yeah, people should be pissed, right? That exact same reaction should be present if it happens to a white person. You want to know why? Is because both are people. One has just a lighter skin complexion, or one just has a darker skin complexion. The fact that we divide that, right, and that as such a definitive divide, that it determines the outrage based on who was the victim, that's ludicrous. And it makes me sad that this is a reality, right? It makes me so sad because we're essentially playing this underlying tit for tat game. It's like you guys were doing a whole bunch of horrible things to people who look like us forever, right? So instead of trying to find out how to coexist and move on, it's just people who have this subconscious grudge against someone who does not look like them. And that determines how they move amongst those people forever. That's such a problem. And once again, operating as if white people are just the oppressors of the world who have come to make your life way harder than what it is, right? It is a problem in twofold. Number one, as I've just stated, right, is we don't have the same level of outrage, right? It's hard to see someone that we don't like as another person, right? Because of a bunch of education and a lot of propaganda that we've been fed growing up. A lot of the stuff that we see, it is propaganda. These are people, right? So that's problem number one. And problem number two, something that I've stated a million times over, is that it keeps us, right, minorities in general, but I'm specifically talking about black people because I am black. It keeps us from looking at the problems that we have in our community. And I'm not saying that these problems are exclusive to black people, but what I am saying is that these problems are prevalent, they're present, and they're abundant in the black community. If you look at these two dudes, right, the first dude, I believe you pronounce his name Jesus Ayala, something like that, I don't know, but according to this article, he had a long criminal history in the juvenile system. And the other dude, the black dude, last name is Keys, he was placed in the child welfare system at 8 years old. His mother was charged with 5 counts of child abuse in 2016 after cops found her 5 children aged 2 to 9 home alone without access to food, a knife left on the kitchen counter, and the house in poor condition. The point that I'm trying to make is that hearing something like that is not uncommon, especially amongst black people. Welfare system, child abuse, not taking care of your kids, not raising them properly, broken homes, no good examples, right? Society, culture, the world starts raising these kids, right? They have nothing to do other than to get into trouble. Now, being 18 and 16, you're aware of what's right and wrong, but at the same time, you are a product of your environment, dog. Pause. So we don't even have the time to analyze the issues that we have because we're so busy looking at how other people are making our lives worse, and that's the perception that we kind of put out there, is that some of our lives are less than stellar because, you know, the white man's holding us down. And I'm not saying that issues of race aren't like a reality. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they're not prevalent in some areas. What I'm saying is that focus on what you can control, and what we can control is dealing with a lot of issues that are in our community. That way that there aren't just kids outside running around hitting people for no reason other than the fact that they have nothing else to do. Because although it was them who committed the crime, I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that if they grew up in an environment that was healthy, chances are they wouldn't be out there doing that. So there's a lot of things that lead up to an incident like this occurring, right? And it's extremely unfortunate how that is not a focal point, right? Because this story is not even going to get traction, right? To put it out there, right? And say, hey, there's some stuff that we need to deal with, or there's some outrage that needs to ensue because this is not okay. These kids killed this man, right? Who has a family and who has people who love him, right? But they think that they're cool. They think that this is cool to do and then post it online. I'm like, number one, you just killed somebody. And number two, you just threw your whole life away. Nothing about that is cool. I'm optimistic that one day we'll, be more aware and on top of situations like this. I'm more optimistic that at some point we'll allow these racial divides to fade away, because a situation like this should happen, but God forbid it does. The silence that has followed is extremely disheartening, right? But ask yourself, right? And this is just me being straight up honest. Like I said, I don't come on here and try to BS or try to pertain to a certain base. I'm just trying to be as real as possible. If this was a black man and that these were two white people who ran down this black man, would we be in the exact same situation right now, where the entire world is completely silent and no one is really saying much about this at all? And then when they do, they try to sugarcoat it by alluding to the fact that the car grew a consciousness and reasoning and decided to just hit this man on its own. That's not the case, and it wouldn't even be close, bro. So it's just something to think about. But condolences to this man's family. It is just so unfortunate when stuff happens like this, and it's even worse when you kind of observe humanity and realize that people aren't like coming together to acknowledge something like this. And the underlying reason, you don't even have to say it, is because the man is white, on top of the fact that the people who committed the crime are minorities. God forbid people get angry over a minority committing a crime, right? Because there's no way that that's possible, right? There's no way. Because that's how it feels right now, I don't relish in this, obviously, because this is unfortunate. I talk about it because I want to bring attention to it, because it's unfortunate that this is how we get down. So hopefully something like this doesn't happen again, but I understand the world that we live in. So all I can do is pray to God that going forward, people less and less use race as a justification for why they want to react a certain way, why they want to be animated in situation X, but then be very, very calm and radio silent in situation Y. Whether it's a black person or a white person or whatever, we are people, and that's what matters more than anything else. So with that being said, I'm extremely sick, so I'm gonna go get some sleep. But it is unfortunate when situations like this happen, but I believe that talking about it, pushing the conversation forward, is extremely important. So that's what I'm gonna continue to do. But I need to feel a little bit better to muster up the energy to keep doing my thing. So that's what I'm about to go do. I'm starting to freaking forget what I'm saying. But in the meantime, be good to each other. Until next time.